Soda in probably 20 years. Bring gas.
Welcome to Flagrant Howls, a Minnesota Timberwolves lifestyle podcast.
And welcome to a Feedback Friday edition of your favorite Timberwolves lifestyle podcast. We've got the sports dad, Judd. We've got often mustached producer, Declan. I am Phil. And we've got a bunch of kind of fun, speculative questions here. There was also a glorious multi-team blockbuster proposal from Zach Lowe on his podcast yesterday. So we'll get to all these things. We may even pop up the offseason Timberwolves blueprint spreadsheet of glory just to see if the cap stuff works or not. But a shout out to Safeside Barbecue for helping kick off this speculative summer here on Flagrant Howls, Judd.
Yeah, and when we're talking about Safeside, we're talking about the best barbecue food truck in the West Metro. That's right, in the West Metro. Safeside, look at the fresh brisket cut to order right there. Absolutely delicious.
Make sure you wear your apron when you're cutting that meat.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah. And you're going to see
Maybe two aprons.
Here's the best part, gentlemen. Everything is homemade. Look at that bread. Absolutely great. Made to order for sandwiches. Find them at safesidebbq.com and on Facebook for where they will have their truck next. 100% wood-fired smoking for juicy, savory, tender meat. Are you kidding me?
Oh, talk
Again,
dirty.
safesidebbq.com. Facebook is going to tell you where they are going next with their food truck. So go find it.
Let's rock and roll. By the way, thank you guys for those of you who've helped us launch this new Flagrant Howls YouTube channel. We appreciate you guys. Over 3,500 subscribers just in the first few days here of this new channel. So if that's where you consume, and maybe you haven't done this already, click that like button, the subscribe button on the brand new Flagrant Howls YouTube channel. You can just literally go to youtube.com/@FlagrantHowls if you want to plug it into your browser. But we're closing in on 4,000 subscribers early on here. So we got that Flagrant Howls channel, the Purple Daily channel, the Score North Twin Show, the Score North channel, and then the O-Line Committee are the 5 YouTube channels we have here at Score North. So let's start with I think these are a couple good lead-ins here, and I would wonder what the sports dad's perspective is on these two comments. We'll start with Minnesota PTSD. Very mockingly, I might add, puts this comment out.
Oh.
Trade for Durant. Trade for Giannis. The first 2 episodes of the new Flagrant Howls YouTube channel. Welcome to NFL Takes 2.0. And then here's one more, just so you can digest these.
Sure.
From Scott Gibson. I wish Flagrant Howls was going to be better than what these past few episodes have been. Everything is clickbait. I don't think Mackey is going to be happy until everyone but Anthony Edwards is gone. Ant and Kevin Durant, 2 against 5, every single night. The speculation is about any big name that's being floated. Little consideration as to how they would fit in or how realistic it is.
Well, wait, just hold on a second. What about the spreadsheet of glory? The whole spreadsheet of glory is to see who fits, who doesn't, who has to go.
Yeah. That's why we have the spreadsheet of glory.
Yes,
okay?
this is all
Scotty. So we can do the math. In fact, I don't want to spoil the whole thing, but that right there, that's the Kevin Durant trade right there that Zach Lowe proposed. Plugged into the spreadsheet of glory.
I've got an idea for the Flagrant Howls off-season episodes, okay? First of all, let's go through every potential first-round pick and break down their games with film. And then once that's done, let's dissect game by game, all 82 games from the regular season, what went right, what went wrong, and what Chris Finch could have done instructively, who didn't go into drop coverage, how were the pick and rolls. Like, this is what the people want, Phil.
And maybe
not your spreadsheet of glory.
A 3-part episode on Leonard Miller's G League performance the last 2 years.
Do you have Iowa film?
35 minutes on Josh Minott being underutilized over the last, season and a half. We've just been sleeping on Josh. Is Josh Minott the next, Anthony Edwards? There's your clickbait headline. There
but then show me why. Like, give me the film. Give me what he does well defensively by quarter.
You know what's funny about this is Tim Connolly has literally been in his office or at Cove and
I was going to say, he's working. He's working from the bar at Cove. This man, he has stolen my heart.
Dude, I'm telling you, it's a little pretentious, some of those like Main Street, Wayzata, whatever, those restaurants and stuff, but Cove and Wayzata, don't sleep on that, like, ceviche dip or whatever that is.
If there was a snake draft of patio watching, that might be my number one pick. I'm not exaggerating.
Popped collars.
It's just phenomenal people watching.
As a guy that grew up in the general vicinity there, I'm from Tonka, so a little bit different, but I will say this.
A little pretentious.
But the people watching at places like that, like there and like Fletcher's, places, it's just fantastic.
We will get to there was a photo going around, a big power meeting. It appeared to be COVID-wise, but so for Scott and for Minnesota PTSD, you're going to hate the first topic here on Feedback Friday. And by the way, like I was saying, just to finish my point, Tim Connolly is literally sitting in his office concocting trade ideas obsessively, according to credible reports, for Kevin Durant as we speak. So this is what's going on inside the Timberwolves building right now. They were very close on a deal for Kevin Durant on February 6th at the deadline, and they're hunting for it again here. So Zach Lowe went on his podcast. Zach Lowe, who was let go from ESPN sometime last year, went on podcast hiatus, but he's back on the Ringer on Bill Simmons' network, and he's awesome. And he put a bunch of trade ideas out there, but here's the one he threw out, sending Kevin Durant to the Timberwolves. Okay, and this is very reckless by Zach Lowe.
Reckless speculation.
Very clickbaity by Zach Lowe. So Kevin Durant and 6'11", 7-footer Nic Claxton to the Timberwolves. Rudy Gobert, Dante DiVincenzo, Rob Dillingham to Phoenix, Julius Randle to Miami. So you'd have like a Julius Randle, Tyler Hero kind of a thing. I guess in this scenario, they'd be keeping Bam Adebayo too, so they'd have nice little nucleus there, Eric Spoelstra.
Yep.
And then some spare pieces and parts like Andrew Wiggins or Duncan Robinson to the Brooklyn Nets and picks, and maybe a couple other like cheap young players. And then this is kind of a second part to it. Nickeil Alexander-Walker sign and trade to the Chicago Bulls for Lonzo Ball. So you'd be getting, this is crazy.
Speculation.
Incoming to the Timberwolves would be Kevin Durant, Nic Claxton, and Lonzo Ball. So you'd have with Kevin Durant, he's 37. We've exhausted, I think, the pros and the cons there in the last week.
Yep.
But you get this secondary scorer next to Anthony Edwards, a guy that was still like 7th in the league in scoring average on high efficiency last year. KD can still pour it in even though he's old. Nic Claxton, who's he would essentially replace Rudy Gobert. He's 26, 27 years old, under contract for 3 more years, and his contract is one of the rare ones that actually starts to decline in average annual value over the next 3 years.
This would be a sneaky good pickup.
Much more reliable offensively. He's not going to stretch and hit threes, but he can catch the ball.
He's got mitts. He's got mitts. He's got the mitts.
I love how that's the barometer. He can catch the
can
ball.
catch the ball.
It's Bobby Wade. He can catch the ball. He's just going to catch it. He's not going to go much further.
So you'd have those guys, and then Lonzo Ball coming in, and we did a bunch on him. I think with Doogie we did some on him, but that super intriguing. I know he's been hurt for much of the last 4 years, and he only played 40% of the season last year with the Bulls, but he is still pretty young. $10 million a year the next 2 years, and he could come in here if you're looking for a point guard that's not 38, but also not 20. That can come in here, and he's 6'6". He's a big body,
right.
Long, defensive, can rebound, and he would come in here. And then outgoing would be Rudy, Randle, Dante DiVincenzo, Rob Dillingham, and obviously Nickeil Alexander-Walker is already an unrestricted free agent. So just for fun, here's the spreadsheet of glory. And Dex, if you want me to zoom in, I can zoom in even further here. But let's go 140 on this. 150?
Yeah, 140 or 50.
We'll go 150 for you.
55.
Because you asked nicely. So as you see at the top here, the big green number for the YouTube audience is how much money they would have tied up in their 2025-26 cap. And my math might be like a little off here and there, but this is pretty close. I feel like $202 million. So they would be $48 million over the salary cap, which is a given. Like pretty much every team except for Brooklyn's over the salary cap. They would be $15 million over the tax line. They would be $7 million over the first apron, but they would be $5.8 million under the second apron. The second apron is the really restrictive one in terms of, like, you can no longer then take player A, player B, cobble them together, trade them for another player over here. And you would still have access to, you'd have some open roster spots here, but your lineup would be, we'll start with the lineup. I think your starting lineup would be Nic Claxton at the 5, KD, Jaden McDaniels at the 3-4, kind of depending. And then Anthony Edwards at the 2 with Lonzo Ball as your starting point guard. And then presumably you would bring Naz Reid back, either exercising the player option or you've got some room here for you've got like $5 or $6 million to play with until the second apron hits. So you could do an extension that keeps his 2025-26 cap number under the second apron, but then you have to fill out your roster too, so it gets a little dicey. I think the Wolves would love for Naz Reid to make as little as possible in 25-26, but he would come off the bench again with Terrence Shannon Jr., Jalen Clark, Mike Conley off the bench, and then whatever you could get from a Josh Minott, Leonard Miller. You'd have an open roster spot for like a $2 or $3 million league minimum guy. You'd also have access to, I believe, the taxpayer mid-level exception, which is up to $5.6 million. You could also spend less than that. And then you got the 17th overall pick, which I've baked into the math here at $4.2 million. So you still have some other assets to build out the last 3 spots or 4 spots on your team and the 31st overall pick. So with all of that, your thoughts on Zach Lowe's reckless speculation?
I like the first trade. So if this trade, Wolves, Suns, Heat, and Nets, are the Nets doing this to clear more cap space? Like what's the Nets' incentive here? They get some draft picks and they get some pieces. They clear more space. I mean, they're going to have at that point in time a ridiculous amount of space. I'd be curious to know what the Nets' incentive is here.
Well, the Nets, they already have like what, $50 or $60 million in space.
Right.
And so they would be, let's see here. They would be taking on, they'd be sending Claxton, Claxton's contract is, I believe, $25 million for this year, $25.3 million. Mm-hmm. And they'd be taking in Duncan Robinson, who's like, I think it's like a $19 million. So the Nets would kind of be like maybe breaking even to some extent, but they would be looking to get draft capital for Nic Claxton is their incentive here. Now, of course, you could argue like Nic Claxton's a pretty reasonable contract for 3 years. There's been a bunch of Nic Claxton steam, though. Yep. So I don't know. I'm not super plugged into what's going on inside the Brooklyn Nets, but there's been a lot of Nic Claxton trade steam, and he would be a perfect fit to replace Rudy here.
I love the Claxton upgrade, though. I love it. I think it would be absolutely, because, I mean, when you look at what Gobert does not do well, and the fact that, I think the most important thing is, the fact is, what Gobert does do well, his statistics are declining as his age increases. So, like, if you were to swap out Gobert for a guy who is more athletic, who can protect the rim, but also can help you more offensively, are you kidding me?
Yeah.
So, that one I love. I will say that
he's a Georgia guy, too. He didn't play with Ant, but he played under Tom Crean like the year before Anthony Edwards did at Georgia. So there's that little Bulldog connection.
That part I love. Mm-hmm. I want to slow the roll on the Lonzo Ball talk, though. That guy has missed so much time, and I guess my question is this: if you trade for him, and opening night he starts, that's great, but like there's no way that you can depend on him to play until he proves it anywhere close to 82 games, probably 70 games. Mm-hmm. Okay, so if that then forces Conley, so if let's say Lonzo Ball is going to miss 20 to 25 games, that's going to force Conley to play. It's then going to force him, when Ball is out, I think theoretically right now, to start. Mike Conley, I don't think, is in a position now to consistently like I think he is. I think he knows this and they know this. He is who he is at this point because he's just old. So who handles the ball? Who becomes the adult on the floor when Lonzo is out and Conley simply can't absorb the amount of playing time that's going to be required?
Kevin Durant and Anthony Edwards. I mean, they're not classic point guards, but there's going to be stretches where, I mean, Kevin Durant is a big time bring the ball up the court guy throughout his career, and Anthony Edwards too. So I don't think it's necessary, especially if you bring KD in here. It's not necessary that you always have that classic point guard on the court. But I feel like I'm accepting of your Lonzo pushback because he's literally played 35 games in the last 3 years.
He missed 2 years.
Totally. I get it. But he's a super cheap contract at $10 million. It's a team option for 2026-27. And in this case, you're going to lose Nickeil Alexander-Walker anyway. So if you could facilitate a sign and trade, Nickeil Alexander-Walker, get something for him, even if it's 1 year of a Lonzo Ball bridge, and you keep Dillingham. In this equation, Zach Lowe has the Wolves. I'm sorry, Dillingham's out. My bad.
Yeah, he goes
so, but you keep that bridge alive with your 17th overall pick, your 31st overall pick, to maybe find someone that is more of a full-time option past Lonzo Ball. So you could also, if you wanted to, you could probably use part of your taxpayer mid-level exception or a veteran minimum on Tyus Jones. And now it's because he played for $3 million under that minimum last year. So you got Tyus, you got Lonzo, and you got Mike Conley, and it's 3 guys that none of them are gonna make the All-Star team or second team All-NBA, but they're adults who can organize an offense. So the other thing is, with this team, you Nic Claxton is not peak Rudy in that defensive presence, but he is a more effective offensive player and just a tool that you can use in a weapon. But you could take him off the court because he's not a 35 minutes per night guy, and you could have a crazy offensive lineup potentially of Naz Reid, Kevin Durant, Jaden McDaniels, Anthony Edwards, and then if it's Lonzo or Conley you could even have Durant and Ant as the primary ball handlers and throw Terrence Shannon Jr. in that lineup too. There's just so many potentially crazy offensive combinations you could build if you pulled a trade like this. So I don't know. It's I'm intrigued by these possibilities, but I think if you're going to bring Durant in, his logic, Zach Lowe's, is correct. You almost have to then part ways with Randall and with Rudy Gobert just to make the team flow and fit better around these things.
On Claxton, so last season, effective field goal percentage took a dip, kind of a significant one. He shot 63. He has shot 63% effective field goal percentage. He actually led the league in effective field goal percentage a few years ago in 22-23. Last year, shots between 0 and 3 feet. This is a guy that shoots 60% from basically right underneath the rim. Last year, just 48%. Are we looking at?
I think you might be looking at that wrong. So,
percentage of his percentage of field goal attempts went from 59% to underneath to 48%.
What you want to look at there is the field goal percentage inside 3 feet, and he's close to 80% for his career.
He's money there, but also he is moving around a little bit and becoming a little bit more versatile if he's not just underneath the rim the entire time too, which is interesting.
The other thing I would look at is he played with Kevin Durant in Brooklyn from 2020 through 2022. So those guys have a couple years worth of chemistry. Now, Claxton was 21 or 22 years old over that stretch. But when he played with Kevin Durant those 2 years, he was getting wide open shots under the rim because of all the attention that was paid to Durant and the rest of the perimeter players.
Yeah.
So those 2 years with Durant, he literally 70% of his shots came inside 3 feet.
Yeah.
And he was converting at an 80% rate. So it's all sweet. When he's playing on a crappy Brooklyn team, he's not going to have these open opportunities off screen and roll, and it's not going to be the same. But if he's out there with Ant and Durant, and he can catch a pass coming off a pick and roll, it is night.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. Rudy Gobert was getting ignored in the paint oftentimes in some of these playoff series.
Yeah, the fact I feel like he played on a really crappy Brooklyn team probably has a lot to do with that because, a few years ago, he was a very effective dude right underneath the rim. Probably, led the league in effective field goal percentage. So I would like to see him, and if that's with Durant, then I'd be very curious to see how it fits with Minnesota.
I watched some film.
Watch some film.
Not going to lie.
On Claxton.
On Claxton, I'm super intrigued. I'm super intrigued. There's a lot to like there.
Very bouncy.
So if I were to, with the guys that Zach Lowe has out, I'm not going to include Knock because I think he's gone regardless. But the 4 guys who were traded directly in this trade, if I was to rank them on, boy, I'd like to keep him 1 to 4. Okay. My 1, Dillingham. I just feel like we are, and look, he might have to, if it's a trade that gets you Durant, I'm not throwing up a roadblock here, but I'm just saying as far as my intrigue, I feel like we're pulling the ripcord really quickly. Like, oh, okay, he just didn't work out. Well, he didn't get to play. And so like, I'm curious what's there. My 2, DiVincenzo, and here's why. I think in year 2 here, he will improve a lot. I still think he went through a lot of things with the Knicks trade. It took him a while. He got settled. The playoffs clearly went terribly. Again, I'm willing to trade him. He's my 2. 3 is Julius. And 4, quite frankly, if you get Claxton, is Rudy. Like, I think the Rudy thing, and look, the day that Rudy walks out the door, I think we owe him a thank you. I think Rudy Gobert brought a professional approach, defense. I think for the most part, I mean, he didn't get you a championship. He did get you into 2 deep playoff runs, which is a credit to him. But I think for the most part, if you were to ask Tim Conley, okay, dude, you took over a disaster or a team that certainly hadn't had a precedent of being good. I think Tim Conley would say, yeah, I'm very pleased here. I think Gobert brought us something because he did. But he would be the 4th guy on my list because if you replace him with Claxton right now, I think that's an upgrade probably, or it is.
And like kind of philosophically, they've built the team around Rudy almost as much as they've built it around Ant the last 2 or 3 years, where everything, and like when you have Rudy, it's like everything kind of has to revolve around the way that he likes to play defense and what you can and can't do with him offensively. He's just kind of this thing you have to hide sometimes, or, there's some ways you can lean into it. But if you remove him from the equation, obviously you have to figure out how does your defense not take a huge dip. But also it opens up so many other possibilities of how you can play, the lineups you can put out there, what your upside is offensively. Right. A team with Anthony Edwards on it shouldn't be sort of capped as like a fringe top 10 offense. A team with Anthony Edwards on it should have the potential to be one of the top 3 to 5 offenses in the entire league, right? Like where you're scoring 117, 118 points on a regular basis.
Correct. So in that scenario, Phil, how much would the offense go up to offset the defense's potential decline? And I don't mean to being bad, but it would come down. What would that have to look like to continue to be a success as far as the potential rankings, do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I think if they pulled a trade like this and Durant still had a year or 2 left of high level offense, but he wouldn't have to carry the franchise. That's Anthony Edwards' job.
Yep.
And now you've got the freedom to move Jaden McDaniels into some different spots and let him be an initiator and more of an aggressor because Julius Randle is no longer a part of the equation, right? I just think if you've got Durant as a riding mate with Ant and you can find new ways to unlock Jaden McDaniels, and you've got a rim runner like Nic Claxton who's just more reliable as a finisher and as a guy that you would be willingly throwing passes to, yeah, I think that could be a top 5 offense. And by the way, Terrence Shannon Jr. and Naz Reid coming off your bench potentially. I think there's a world where Naz Reid plays more minutes than Nic Claxton, but he still comes off the bench. Where like his minutes goes up, his contract would kick in. So let's get to a couple other ones here because you kind of touched on this Rudy thing. So 2 things off the NBA Finals. Mike T has the first one here. Let's actually start with the Rudy one here from Robbie B. I believe that he is generally wildly underappreciated, but the finals and the playoffs have proven Rudy Gobert is obsolete to winning a title. Obsolete is a strong word because, like, you don't just go from being a 42-win team or a 46-win team that's kind of a fringe playoff team or a lottery team for all those years to being in the Western Conference Finals back-to-back years. Like, there's steps to be taken, and Rudy was a huge, important cog to those steps being taken. But when you watch, because what did we say before the final started? It's going to be really fascinating to see what Indiana does or doesn't do against Oklahoma City. If OKC just wipes out Indiana in 4 or 5 games, like, all right, well, that was fun. This high-paced, high-octane, 5-out team just got wiped. Well, what's happening is Siakam and Turner, the 2 main bigs for Indiana, super talented. They can shoot. They can run the floor. And Indiana is just kind of barraging Oklahoma City, especially in the fourth quarter, with offense. And they play their own style of defense as well, but like no one's going to mistake Indiana for being one of the best defensive teams in the league. But the way that they barrage you in transition and with energy, it's just like 2.5 hours. And that leads into the next comment from Mike T here. Game 3 of the finals may have shown us the recipe for beating Oklahoma City in the future. Indiana played with incredible pace. Talking heads are saying when you play fast, OKC can't do what it typically does, and they will start to wear down. If that's the case, we have a need for speed, to quote Top Gun. Terrence Shannon Jr. and Rob Dillingham could potentially have much larger roles if OKC is the target for which to shoot. And if you watch these games, Indiana is picking up Oklahoma City ball handlers for basically the entire night, full court or 3/4 court.
Yep.
And even though OKC has been leading and controlling like the majority of the series up until like the second half of game 3,
yep,
they're exhausted by the end of the fourth quarter because it's work just to get the ball past half court and then get into your sets, and then the shot clock starts to go down.
Mm-hmm. And the Pacers are in such good shape, and we're in the finals now, that they can actually go what I would call frenetic in the fourth quarter. So like their pace, their pressure, their pace picks up, which is absolutely incredible. But it speaks volumes to how good of condition you have to have your players in. The other thing, though, is, and this is a great point, comes back to Finchie. So, I mean, nobody wants him traded, or you shouldn't, to the Knicks. Nobody wants him fired tomorrow. But we talked about this, guys, and the Pacers are sort of proving it against the Thunder. Terrence Shannon needed to play more. Like, think about his pace, like his style. And when you look at what the Pacers are, like you could take, if you were to take, let's take Ant out because he's a superstar. But if you take Ant out and you say to the Pacers, hey, you guys can have a guy. Who do you want? Who do you want tonight to play? Terrence Shannon Jr. would be near the top of the list based on how they play. So, like, that is one thing that I do think, and this was not a second guess, we talked about this, first guess, where Finchie screwed up. Because Terrence Shannon, if you had put him out there consistently and said, you do what you do, you're going to draw some fouls, but you also are going to make OKC uncomfortable. And that's what it comes down to. OKC in this series looks uncomfortable at times. You name me the amount of games beyond the blowout game here that OKC looked uncomfortable in the Western Conference Finals.
Well, 2 games that they looked uncomfortable in the regular season were in the losses against the Timberwolves, where Terrence Shannon Jr. and Jalen Clark played. Now, again, it's regular season, whatever. But yeah, I agree. Like that was a first guess criticism, and in retrospect, and watching what Indiana's doing and making OKC uncomfortable. Just okay, you guys want to play with some pace? Let's play with some pace and see what happens. So let's get into the Naz Reid Tim Connolly meeting at Cove in Wayzata. What do you guys think was going on there? I doubt if they're probably not talking money without the agent being present, but
roll.
What do you think old TC was asking Naz Reid over? Was he saying goodbye? Was he telling him he's being traded face to face like he did with Cat last year?
If he was going to say goodbye, I don't think you go out in public. I think you go like he did with Cat.
Show up to his house at 10 o'clock
and talk to him. My guess is they're talking about the potential role, because you're probably right. He probably still comes off the bench here. And yeah, he probably wants to start. But I mean, this team, like Tim Connolly has proven, I think, that he knows how to build a team and a potential champion. And the Wolves need to make some changes to get there. If we can see that, I think Tim Connolly can see that. I don't know that Naz needs to go, though. So my guess is, my 2 cents is this. I think that they were talking about the potential future role here because Naz has one, but it might not be the starting role that he could certainly get elsewhere.
Yeah, but hey, you can still make like $25 million, $23 million a year and be a huge part. And, dude, you're probably going to play more minutes because if we pull this trade, Tim's like,
I'm about to get Durant.
yeah, Tim's like, that trade that Zach Lowe just put out there, I fed that to him as a trial balloon. So let's workshop that here over
Two drinks,
some calamari.
2 drinks and 1 Durant.
I think probably the meeting mostly, talking about the future and maybe like not like a formal exit interview from the season, but I think Nas is here for the long term. I do. We keep seeing these trade proposals that include Gobert and Julius, and now sometimes Dante. I would like to think that Nas Reed's part of the future plan here. So would I love to be a fly on the wall? Speaking of people watching at Cove, again, my number 1 spot. Yes, I would have loved that. But I would lean that Nas Reed is a Timberwolf, and I bet they're kind of talking about the future a little bit.
I think so too. Otherwise, it would have been DiVincenzo. And if I think if DiVincenzo had played better in the playoffs, maybe he's the one at Cove. He gets a with Cove Tim invite.
I was going to say, I don't think with the way he played postseason, he gets the Cove invite.
Maybe Culver's. Maybe the Culver's invite.
I have a feeling, assuming Dante isn't living here in the offseason, that Dante was on the first flight wherever the heck he wanted to go the day after locker cleanout day, and it probably hasn't been back. That's my assumption.
Yeah, and it was working so well there for a while, but then his playoff performance was such a dud.
Yeah,
and if he's not going to be this high end stretch the offense scoring energy guy, like there's so many other players that you'd like to give minutes to, Terrence Shannon Jr., Jalen Clark, and also to make the math work on some of these Kevin Durant trades, including DiVincenzo's contract, even though it's a really valuable contract. It's a very team-friendly contract. Makes sense. So, yeah, I think you're right. I don't think you take Nas to Cove and Wyzetta in public if you're on the verge of, like, signing and trading him or something. So, we'll see what happens.
And plus, unless we find out that Conley does a bunch of his business from the corner at Cove, I also don't know that dude would go out in public a ton with players unless it was something that he didn't consider to be, like, secret. Like, he's so secretive. Like, he might be, as far as executives in this town go, I think he's one of the most they all try to keep things quiet. Conley actually accomplishes it.
He's kind of like a guy's guy too. Like, let's just go to the bar and let's hash it out. He's just I think he'll like solo restaurants and bars too around town. People just see Tim Connolly hanging out.
Got a solo. Love soloing. It's the greatest. Why are people afraid to solo it?
I loved going to, when I lived in North Loop, those first few years, I would close bars down by myself at the bar. I loved, and then also like you build especially at the places you go to frequently, you build a rapport with the bartender, and you might get a little post-game cocktail as the door's locked. Like it's a good spot to be in.
Closing them down solo, I feel like, is next level solo in the bar.
When you're stumble distance from home, I will say, like literally,
like
I'd cartwhile out the door into my apartment.
I'm more of like a happy hour solo the bar guy, and then go home and watch Netflix or something.
If you're in your 20s though, I totally solo late night.
I can't do it.
No. I'm totally
1:45.
There was
just half asleep at the bar alone. Oh my!
There was a Golden Valley bar in the 90s where I actually occasionally was just simply handed the clicker to change channels.
Judd, you're going to be here for a few hours.
The bartender's like, "I'll just take it." She was very nice. She's like, "Just take it," because like she didn't want to turn the channel.
There's a Bruins Flyers game on.
Yeah, damn right. Yes, you know what? Mock all you want. That's exactly what I was watching.
The Knicks and the Celtics are playing. What channel is it on? Judge, here's the rule.
Here's
late night baseball. Little Red Sox Angels.
I love it.
Oh yeah, let's go. Little Jim Edmonds.
Move
on. Michael Hacker chimes in. What's the deal with Minnesota fans being done with Rob Dillingham already? Wasn't he like one of the top prospects in the draft? Yeah, it is. I mean, it's tough because he didn't play a whole lot, and so the excitement and his value have probably diminished since he was drafted. But they could still be sitting on a really high-end offensive player here.
Yes.
That's just yet to be unlocked and unleashed. He's only 20 years old. And so I'm sure they're trying to balance, like other teams are looking at that and saying, boy, his stock is lower than it was in the draft because he didn't play. And we could probably buy low on him by shipping Kevin Durant out. So if you're the Suns, absolutely you'd be looking at buying low on Rob Dillingham. And if you're the Wolves, you have to weigh the value of a year or two of Kevin Durant versus what you might be giving up ages 21 through 25 or 26 of Rob Dillingham's career. You would definitely potentially be robbing from the future. You'd be robbing from Anthony Edwards like 26, 27, 28 age seasons.
Yep.
If you take Dillingham out of this thing.
I'm not throwing him into a trade just for the sake of it. Like in this case, I think it's necessary, and to get Durant with how it might work for a couple of years, I would do it, I believe. But I am not, personally for me, like I'm not just sticking him into trades because it didn't work, because in my opinion, we have no idea. So I agree with that.
One more thing here before we wrap for the episode. Nabil says, I think it'd be fun to hear you guys do a discussion talking about the pros and cons of having Durant on your team, especially in terms of his personality, how he's been on social media, and what effect that might have on Anthony Edwards. He is a mercurial personality in that he will go on, like the burner account stuff from 10 years ago. Yeah. He'll go on and he'll just like argue with people on Twitter, sitting in the locker room after a game or at home over some red wine or whatever. He's a different kind. He's not like your classic alpha superstar personality. I think he fits very well sort of slotted behind someone who has the personality of an Anthony Edwards.
Yeah.
I think this could be perfect because then Durant could teach Ant things on the court, how to unlock. I mean, Durant is one of the best at getting to his spot, and he has these money spots in the half-court offense. And Ant is still trying to find some of those spots. So could he slot in, help Ant on the floor, and then Ant is still sort of the face and the leader of the team and the personality and the heartbeat of the team?
Ant would be the alpha personality still, and I think Durant would actually thrive from being around a guy like that. The other thing too that is important is he'd be playing in Minnesota, where he wouldn't be forgotten. But it's certainly like if Durant goes to like the Knicks, there's a white hot spotlight on that dude constantly. He's being talked about on First Take every day. You come here, I'm not saying that you won't be discussed, but you certainly wouldn't have the scrutiny.
Yeah, it's a more friendly environment.
Well, and the national folks aren't going to talk about you every single day. Like if you go to the Lakers or the Knicks, you're going to be talked about all the time.
I actually think that, I agree with your general point, which is like the Knicks would be a whole nother level of just scrutiny, spotlight, all those things. But I think if KD comes to Minnesota, you're going to get so many more nationally televised games. You're going to get a lot more discussion on the national platforms with Ant having now been back-to-back playoff runs. And like, there's going to be a level of conversation and expectation around this team that we are not really used to at all in the modern media age. But I do agree that New York would be even next level compared to that.
If Durant has a bad 2-game stretch, it's not going to be the lead on First Take. If he has a bad 2-game stretch as a Knickerbocker, brace yourself.
Yeah. You're assuming he's going to have a bad 2-game stretch with this loaded set of.
I'm just saying, I think it works out really well. Personality-wise, I think.
Find me the bad 2-game stretch. Find me the bad 2-game stretch.
November 18th and 19th, a back-to-back against the Spurs. Wemby embarrasses everybody.
Or, it'd be the back-to-back against Portland is in classic Wolves fashion.
Hopefully that changes next season.
What, playing back-to-back in Portland or just losing to Portland?
No, losing both games in Portland. No, you're probably going to play back-to-back in Portland.
So there's your Feedback Friday episode here of Flagrant Howls. So much swirling around.
This episode, to me, scale of 1 to 10, I'm going to 3. Like, I was looking for breakdowns of the bench. I was hoping to get, more in-depth about defensive play.
Well, we'll do a full Judd will do a full breakdown of drop coverage defense, and he'll display that in his on his.
I'm bringing
YouTube.
the box and one back, and I'll unveil that on Monday.
Okay. Should be good. How about the Princeton offense? Maybe they could
be curl.
They could turn
that.
their attention.
I love
there.
it.
So, all right, we're gonna have a probably Monday a latest Timberwolves news episode because every 6 hours there's just some new report coming out, and we'll see where this thing goes as the Wolves turn this offseason soap opera. This is your favorite Timberwolves lifestyle podcast. See you guys.